All right. Good morning, guys. It's Dr. Casey Pride here. I'm coming at you from Orange County, California, and Costa Mesa at Cone Health Institute. I'm here with a very good friend of mine. He's a unique kind of chiropractor. Dr. Cotey Jordan he's been a chiropractor for 11 years. He has a practice with his wife, Dr. Amanda Jordan, called Family Chiropractic, and he's currently serving in his 17th year in the United States Air Force as an honorable captain. So he's doing both. He's a published author. He's a philanthropist. And I am stoked to have Dr. Cotey Jordan on for a conversation. How you doing, my friend?
Dr. Casey, my man. Good to be here. I'm doing great.
Good. It's been too long, man. I think last time I saw you was at Dr. Hudak's event at the Truth in Kansas City, and you absolutely crushed your talk, man. It was good to see you there.
That was in March, right before that whole COVID kicked off.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I think it was like the weekend before things really hit the fan. it was nice to be able to get together right before that happened. So first question for you, man. I know you're in chiropractic. I know you're in the military, and I want to talk a little bit about both of those things. But what got you into chiropractic originally?
Yeah, so like a lot of chiropractors, I have my story. So the gist of it is it's migraines. I suffered from migraines from the age of 10 to 21. And like a lot of people with the conditions, but certainly migraines, I went to all the doctors, all the experts, all the specialists. I got MRIs, CTs, x-rays, took every medication under the sun. It was just miserable, man. I spent my life chasing symptoms. My parents didn't know what else to do. I remember the ER visits like they were yesterday. And I just kept chasing symptoms. And, these migraines, they were debilitating. They kept me out of school. They pulled me out of sports. I felt different from the other kids. So long story short, from the age of 10 to 21, I was pretty miserable. But when I was 21 years old, I was getting ready to deploy to Iraq for an entire year. And my migraines were so bad, they were keeping me from keeping up with training. And really powerful story. It was actually like my boss's 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 boss, someone really high up in rank in the United States Air Force, reached out to little old me. And, I remember like it was yesterday. He says, "Son, I want you to go to my doctor for your condition." And honestly, I just kind of laughed at him like, "No, man, you don't understand. I've been to all the doctors." And not only did he insist, he drove me to his doctor, which ended up being a corrective care chiropractor. So the rest is history, man. I was introduced to chiropractic when I was 21. They reduced my headaches dramatically. And over time, I got completely rid of my migraines. And it affected me so much that I actually went back to school to become a chiropractor.
That's awesome, man. And I know you have your military career as well, and you're actually doing both. And how do you marry those two things? How do chiropractic and your work in the Air Force come together for you?
Yeah. So first things first, thanks for the introduction. I really appreciate that. I'm going on 19 years already.
Whew.
So come February, that'll be 19 years. And, I got in straight out of high school. Really what happened was I went to college for a semester and I'm thinking, crap, how am I going to pay for this? So my family has zero military background. And I don't even know how I thought of, hey, the United States Air Force, but lo and behold, that's what I did. I chose that. And at a young age, I was introduced to the Air Force. I saw some different cultures. I met some different people. And really my biggest takeaway with the United States Air Force is they have 3 core values that they instill in us at a very early age in our careers. And those 3 core values are integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. So, as a chiropractor, if you just think about that, integrity. As a healthcare provider, you have to have integrity. You have to be doing the right things for your patients. As far as service goes, I can apply that to every aspect of my life. Really, that's the whole purpose of living, is to serve others. And as a chiropractor, I want to serve my community. I want to serve humanity. And then excellence, man, that's just a core value that my wife and I have instilled in ourselves. If we're going to do anything, we might as well freaking do it right and just give it our all. So, it all comes down to being a leader. I'm a leader in the United States Air Force, been in for 19 years. I lead a bunch of airmen, and I'm a leader in my community when it comes to chiropractic and healthcare.
Yeah. And, I know you mentioned when we were talking before coming on that Military really hasn't skipped a beat when it's come to everything that's happened in the world. It seems like so much has changed in the world around us. I know your practice hasn't changed much. My practice hasn't changed much. Your work in the military probably hasn't changed much. But for the vast majority of people, a heck of a lot's changed in their day to day. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on just the whole COVID situation, how the government's handled it and all that, as someone who's in our military, who works for the government right now.
Man, that is such an open-ended question. Yeah, so how did the government handle it? It's interesting because the World Health Organization is a government agency and, of the United Nations. And ultimately, they're kind of throwing out the play-by-play. And I feel like the rest of the world is just following. So how did the government handle it? I'm going to say very poorly. And the reason I can say that is because, the United States is the biggest supporter and the biggest contributor of the World Health Organization. And I find that ironic. And I think most people in our boat who with the natural health care would as well. People who have the most influence, people who are contributing the most, they're going to be able to influence an organization. So when it comes to the World Health Organization, man, they're all over the place. I mean, they can't even come up into agreement with the definition of health. So why is there an organization trying to dictate what health is to the entire world when they can't even come into agreement themselves? So how do I feel like the government has handled the whole COVID scam? I would say very poorly.
Okay. Well, I love that you're straight to the point, man. So I gather you're not a big fan of the lockdowns.
No, not at all.
Because I know as a military guy, I know you're on the front lines, really. I mean, you're part of the armed forces whose job is to protect our rights, protect our freedoms. And so I imagine you have an interesting perspective when it comes to this infringement on our freedoms.
I do. I mean, really what it comes down to, and I really don't want to make this political. Unfortunately, it is. But I don't want to make it political because when it comes to the armed forces, it's simple, man. The President of the United States, that is our leader. That is our commander in chief. That's who we take orders from. And, I really feel for President Trump right now because he's getting hit from every which direction. And I think he's got a lot of brass to be able to step up and say, you know what, then fine. We're going to stop contributing to the World Health Organization. Like that takes guts. And again, I don't want to make this an emotional conversation here. He said, she said, but a lot of people, they're voting based on emotions and really what's being fed through the news left and right. So on the military side of it, it's very black and it's very white. We take our orders from our president and it's going to travel down and there's a huge chain of command that's followed. And, we've been put in some really weird situations because of it. And really what I'm referencing to is vaccines in the past. And, there's a lot of talk, military and civilian, there's this race for the cure. And the reality is they're just chasing symptoms. And it's just going to be the next flu shot. And it's no secret the military has been used as test dummies, if you will, in the past. So one of my personal concerns is this vaccine's coming, whether we like or not, it's coming. And there's going to be a lot of decisions that need to be made. And I'll be very curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I know in the military, they tend to really use you guys as the first people to get some of these vaccines. They mandate a lot of these for you guys, a lot that the general public generally isn't mandated to get, or however that goes. So I'm curious, what your thoughts are if this vaccine comes out and they decide, hey, you know what, we're giving this to the military, whether they like it or not. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so backtrack. A lot of people don't know that. It's actually very interesting. I believe it was World War II. It's like in the 40s, they tested the flu vaccine. That's when the flu vaccine was being created, and they tested it on the military members. And when they deemed it, okay, it's safe, let's do it, that's when they offered it to the general public. And I kind of foresee that coming with this new COVID vaccine. And honestly, I'm not a fan of it at all. And I think people are becoming more and more educated that the whole world of vaccines, if you look at it from the inception of vaccines, I think it was cowpox when it came out, like late 1700s. And from there on out, they keep chasing symptoms. There's a vaccine for every freaking virus out there. The problem is there's hundreds and thousands of different viruses. So for us to keep chasing symptoms and then keep adding to this laundry list of vaccines that we're supposed to give to our newborns, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. So again, when it comes to the COVID vaccine, I have no idea what's going to come with that. What I do know is there's going to be a lot of folks in the military who are not going to be jumping to the front of that line and excited to have to get that. In fact, I believe that there will be some people, you will see the enrollment in the military, I believe it will severely decrease if this is in fact mandated for the military members.
Yeah. What would you do if they mandated it for you?
Well, that's a no-brainer. I mean, I'm in a very interesting situation. I'm going on to 19 years. So for those of you who don't know, 20 years gets you a retirement in the United States military. And, you know, I have personal beliefs that go so much higher than my military career. And there's just absolutely no way that I will step in line and allow for the COVID vaccine. I simply won't take it. And that's why I'm very curious to see how this plays out, because things are going to happen really quick. If not the end of this year, certainly the earlier months of 2021.
Yeah. So we've seen how this has been handled. If you were in charge, what would your solution be to the whole COVID problem?
So here's the thing, man. I don't think it's a COVID problem. And I know it's a pretty broad statement. It's just the next thing. Like the flu vaccine's not new and exciting anymore. The problem is vaccines were introduced to help people. I truly wholeheartedly believe that. The problem is over the years, they turned it into a business and they saw this huge money generating opportunity. Hence why there's a vaccine for every freaking virus on the market. And it's just getting beyond ridiculous. So if I were in charge, which clearly I'm not, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Nobody wants to hear what hundreds and thousands of doctors have to say. Because really all that matters is the people who are running that World Health Organization and the CDC, which again, it's a government organization, which by the way, are making trillions of dollars. And I just don't feel like it's about health anymore. I do believe it's about money. So what I would do if I was in charge, I would quit chasing symptoms. The race is on for this cure for this virus, which all viruses are going to constantly evolve and change. So there is no vaccine that's going to cure this whole thing. Could you imagine, Dr. Casey, if they spent the hundreds of billions of dollars that they're spending to find this magical cure? What if they spend that hundreds of billions of dollars on teaching people how to live healthy and how to strengthen their immune system, how to be fit and functioning at a higher level? If it was truly about health, I believe that's what would be happening here. We wouldn't be walking around with freaking masks on and saying, hey, we need more testing centers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been my concern this whole time. Is there's been this massive focus on the drug, on the vaccine, and very little attention put on health, on building resilience. You know, I mean, even the CDC's own numbers showed us that 6% of people who died from this illness died from only the illness. Everyone else was already sick with something. So how do you build health? And it's a conversation that just really isn't happening. And the fact that all the attention and all the money is going to the drug industry, right, to therapeutics and to vaccine development, it's pretty telling about what the objective is here. I mean, if it was really about health, like you said, we'd be funding health. We wouldn't be funding this reactive approach to treating people who are already sick. It just hasn't made sense to me. Man, I think a lot of people right now in this whole situation feel pretty helpless and powerless. What can the everyday person do to really make a difference in their community, in their country, in the world?
Yeah, so man, I don't want to come off a negative spin on this. I just don't think the everyday person gives a shit, to be honest with you, because we live in this world of instant gratification. Like, we don't want to be inconvenienced. So people are like, if I just got to wear a mask, I'll just wear the damn mask. Like, why don't you just wear the damn mask? And they're not willing to fight. So what I would say is what everyday leaders should do is they should be loud, they should be proud, they should speak up, they should be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations, because people now more than ever, they need to be led. And right now we just don't have any leadership. Everything is just so confused, especially at this time with the elections going on, and there's so much hatred going on. And it's not even about, if you even watch like the debates, it's not even about, hey, here's what I'm going to do to elevate our country. It's more so, you suck and here's why you suck.
Yeah.
Like, we're just taking we're kicking each other in the shins, and we're just kind of jabbing at each other, and we're putting each other down. And rather than actually, serving other people, doing what's right for humanity and looking forward. I mean, our mandated mask going to turn our whole health crisis around? Like, that would be like me mandating people to get adjusted.
Yeah.
You need to get adjusted. Like, forget your freedoms, you don't have a choice. You need to get adjusted. And the sad part is that would actually make us healthy.
Yeah. I think you and I are on the same page on that. When it comes to health and health freedom, I mean, I know that what we do in chiropractic is every single man, woman, and child on this planet would benefit from chiropractic care from cradle to grave. And it's never my place or your place or any other chiropractor's place to push for some kind of legislation that forces people to comply and do this against their will. Informed consent.
Let me ask you something, Dr. Casey. This is interesting.
Yeah, man.
There are some brilliant-minded people on both sides of this thing.
Yeah.
How did we get to that? Because for me, I would think when it comes to the good of humanity in healthcare, it should be very black and white. And we're letting a lot of subjective opinions and emotions get involved. How are people so passionate on the far sides of each side of this?
Gosh, man, that's a tough question to answer. I don't know that I have a good answer for you on that. I mean, I think a huge part of it is we're surrounded with such polarizing rhetoric. I think that's one piece of it is, there's every bit of media coverage and media conversation and media debate on this is really, really hostile. It's really, really, us versus them. There's very little coming to the table and having conversations. So I see that in our media. I see that with our politicians, and I think leadership has a heck of a lot of influence. And so if that's the way that they're behaving, and that's the example being set for the public, they're really setting the stage for the public to behave that way as well. So I think that's a big part of it. And I also think that there's probably a pretty big interest in us behaving this way, and it's by design. I was reading a study just the other day on how they're messaging the COVID vaccine. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but it's a study on really these different messages they're going to try to use to increase vaccine compliance. And they're talking about a shame message, how ashamed you'd feel if you didn't get it, a guilt message, you're not brave if you don't get the vaccine message. And there's these very divisive messages being sent out to sort of compel people to behave a certain way and to really turn the public against each other, because by itself, the government really can't get these policies. They really can't enforce these policies. They need the public to sort of rally in support around the policies in order to really make them to really be able to get people to comply with them. So I think part of it is the example being set for us by leadership, by media. And I think I really do think part of it's by design. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I think there's a lot of pieces to this, man. What do you think?
I agree with you, man. One thing I would throw in there is I agree. I do believe it's by design. I think what they did with COVID is they gave it a name, they gave it an identity, and they freaking sold it to the masses. And I've been saying from day one, this is the second biggest scam right after the United States healthcare system. I mean, this thing is the biggest freaking scam. And if you think about it and you break it down, you got the World Health Organization, which getting its most buy-in from the United States, which is contributing the most amount of money, which gives us influence, which is why they're constantly changing the definition of health to match their lingo, if you will. I mean, if you look at the United States, and I'm preaching to the choir here, brother, you know this, we take by far more medications than any other country. We spend by far more money on our healthcare system, and we're far from the top when it comes to healthcare. Like, why is that? And if you apply that principles to this COVID scam, I agree, man. There's a lot more to it than just simply, hey, we're really worried about people's health.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you're spot on, man. We're the U.S. is 5% of the world's population. We consume 70 to 75% of the world's prescription drugs, and we spend more money than any other country in the world. I mean, if taking more medicine and spending more money equaled better health, we would be top of the list when it came to health. We would have the best health outcomes. Yeah, when the WHO last studied and actually ranked our healthcare systems and the health of our countries, there are 36 industrialized countries, and we ranked dead last in that study. So yeah, it's pretty clear that what we're doing isn't working. So yeah, I totally agree with you, man. If we dump even a fraction of the money that we're dumping into drug research and vaccine research into just simply teaching people how to live healthy, that's the answer. And ultimately, the person who's responsible for your health is you. The vast majority of disease and immune system compromise is lifestyle induced. That means the behaviors you engage in on a day-to-day basis have led you to your state of health you're in now. Now, whether you knew what you were doing, whether those decisions were conscious or you just didn't know what you didn't know and you're here, doesn't matter. You are here as a result largely of the choices you've made in life. Mm-hmm. And some people look at that and they get angry. They feel like a victim. That's one way to look at it. But the way I think that's an empowering way to look at it, because if you acknowledge that where you are now is a result of the choices you've made, all you have to do to change your life is make a different choice. And I think one of the best things we can be doing, that you and I can be doing, is just educating people on just really how to make those better choices. And that if people are willing to do it, they can make those better choices. They don't have to live in fear right now. Man, I really appreciate you coming on. And anytime I have conversations with people on here, I love to give you the last word. I know you've got a unique perspective on life, being in the military, being a doctor as well. What's the world need to hear from Dr. Cotey Jordan?
Man, I'm just going to continue on what you were just saying, man, because your health, it is your greatest asset. Your health, it is your choice, and your health, it's your responsibility. And you were saying, some people hear that and they get angry. Quite frankly, I get angry because our medical system, it's not a healthcare system. It is a sick care system. And it just makes me so angry because, yeah, I can look at people who are clearly not healthy and they're functioning at a very minimal level and they're sick and diseased. And I can look at them and say, man, I wish you would just step up and take responsibility. But the sad reality is, and, I relate it to myself, like I said, age 10 to 21, debilitating migraines, it was freaking miserable. Nobody's leading us. Like our World Health Organization, the CDC, they do not give a damn about us. They give a damn about those trillions of dollars continuing to increase. They want us on those medications. They're basically teaching us that medications is a lifestyle. So you got the general public who just doesn't know any better. And I agree with you, man. That's where we step in. That is where leaders step in, and we need to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations. We need to inspire people. We need to empower them to be able to take their health into their own hands. So what do you need to know from Dr. Cotey? Pretty straightforward, man. Your health is your responsibility.
I love it, man. Well, Dr. Cotey, I appreciate you coming on, man. I appreciate you having this conversation. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure when our paths cross, and to get to chat with someone who has this military perspective has been really awesome. So, man, keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate you. You're a huge leader in your community. I know you're moving the needle out there. And I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Are you going to be at the Truth this year?
You betcha.
Nice, man. I'll be there too. We'll see you there.
Thanks, bud.
All right, guys. We'll see you. I got 9 o'clock. I got Dr. Max Orris coming on. We're going to have more fun this morning. So we'll chat soon.